Report unusual behavior. Barricade your homes. Avoid all contact with infected individuals. Wait for official instructions. Wait my ass.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday night live stream. I am Marcus Winnie, and I am your artist tonight. Before we get started, I just wanted to share with you the membership video, and then we'll get straight into it. So, you want to join my membership?
Contract. Sign it.
By joining, you won't only unlock members-only content, you'll also be supporting my channel and the growth of the community. Are you ready to do your part?
I'm doing my part.
For as little as a price of coffee a month.
God damn, Jimmy. This some serious gourmet shit.
You'll be able to access all past live streams and get exclusive members-only content.
Yeah, boy.
That's less than 49p a video.
Shut up and take my money.
So if you're ready, join now and become part of this 3D journey.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
All right, so as you saw there, you can become a member. You can grab all the past live stream tutorials, as well as the live stream Thursday chill sessions, as well as, like I said, the dragon tutorial and the anatomy tutorial that we're working on at the moment. Before we get into ZBrush, I just wanted to share with you also, if you become a Patreon, you can grab the live stream archives, as well as this tutorial at the moment they're going through, which is the tutorial on how to sculpt the Velociraptor. It's one video a week. It's from beginning to end, files included, and it's a great tutorial to jump in on if you're a beginner in ZBrush, and you also get a pretty cool looking model at the end of it. Cool. Right. Get this music going. It is October, so I think as you saw in the beginning of the intro, that I am having a 50% off. If you want more information about that, there's a script, there's the coupons down below, as well as links to the online websites where you can get 50% off throughout the whole of October on all my digital goods, so tutorials, models, brushes, etc. Just gonna chuck the ZBrush scene up, so let me just grab that. There we are, and also I'm going to put the comments on. So as I said before, this is a chilled live stream, so if you want to ask me any questions, go ahead. There is a video I wanted to share with you as well before we get started. I think I'll share it now, will be better than sharing it later. So let me just bring this over to the main menu. Oh, hold on, let me turn the music off first, because it's actually something that I've been working on in my job, and they finally released the trailer for the project I've been working on. So I thought maybe you guys would like to see it.
For centuries, we, the forgotten shadows of Thera, have been sealed deep beneath the earth, lost to time and memory. This was Thera, a city of wonder and invention. Here, humans shaped us in their image, gave us life. We inherited their brilliance and their flaws. Vanity, gave way to envy, envy to war. And our once great city turned to ruin. My kin are no longer what they were, twisted by grief and corrupted by hate. They will meet you with hostility. You must be ready to defend yourself, Rosa.
You may run for a long time, run for a long time, run for a long time. Let me tell you the guy.
Beware, Rosa. The echoes of war still hum beneath. And a buried thread stirs once more.
There we go. There's the video game that I've been working on in my full-time job. I thought maybe you guys would like to just have a quick look at that and maybe, you know, ask me any questions you'd like about the video game and how and what I actually worked on or anything like that. So yeah, that's just a little bit of something for you guys. One of the Halloween treats, I guess. Cool. So we're working on this. We're currently working on the Godzilla bust tonight. I really want to get this one done very quickly because I want to move it on to rendering inside of ZBrush. Now, if you weren't here for the other live streams, you will remember that I have bought myself a new machine, and I had Keyshot on my old machine, which is that one in the background there where that light is. So that's the little machine that I was working on in my past videos. Now, I bought a perpetual license for Keyshot, and I thought to myself, it's perpetual. They'll always have my license, and I'll always be able to download Keyshot because it's perpetual. Turns out, they lied. Well, they didn't lie. They changed hands in management or company, I guess, and the new people in charge decided, well, because it's under a new umbrella or it's under a new company name, we're just going to completely get rid of all perpetual licenses. So I can no longer use Keyshot on any other machine. Even though I have a license, I cannot download Keyshot onto my new machine without having to pay the subscription, which is very expensive. So what I've done, or what I'm planning to do, is use that machine in the background, a little bit of a workaround, but use that machine in the background for rendering things on a Keyshot license, ZBrush to Keyshot, like you see in my time-lapse videos. But I won't be able to use it for the live streams because it'll be over there and I'm over here. So I think I may have found I might have found a workaround. I'm going to try to replicate the same sort of rendering techniques. Same sort of rendering. It's mostly using ZBrush's rendering techniques, and try to get it as close to a kind of Keyshot visual. Now, I don't use it this way because, like I said, I had Keyshot, so I didn't have to use it this way. But before I actually got Keyshot, like 2-3 years ago, I was starting to look into this technique and thinking about using it, but then people kept asking for Keyshot, so I decided to go for Keyshot. So hopefully, by the end of tonight, we'll be able to get a render out using this technique inside of ZBrush, which I don't think people have seen before. I might have a tutorial of it on my on my YouTube channel, but I don't think people remember it. So hopefully this will be entertaining and educational for you guys as well. All right, so with all that being said, let's get into Godzilla's bust. So where were we last time? Last time, we basically just plastered this character with a bunch of alphas that I had in the alpha channel there. And we're just detailing it, adding some detail into it. Just making it less flat. Now, since then, and looking at it again, I think we can actually maybe multiply some of these details because it still looks a little bit too flat, right? So I forgot to name them, which is not a problem. We just have to turn them on and off by hand. So what I'm trying to do is just find some of these details. Let's try this one. So this is at 0.5 at the moment. Let's just bump this up because I've also noticed that when rendering in ZBrush or when rendering in total as a conceptual piece, it's best to push the detail a little bit more than what it is, because ZBrush gives you a false look on your character. I don't know if anyone's ever noticed that before. So you'll be sculpting away, you think you have a really detailed character, and then all of a sudden you take that into, I don't know, Maya or Keyshot, and then you look at the detail and it's very faint, and that's because, or very small or smoothed out. That's because ZBrush's preview window doesn't work the same way as other preview windows or rendering windows. So you'll probably find that you have to come in and double some of these layers. So this one here is the cheek area or the face area, and you can see here it's very low res, right, or very small in detail. So what I'm just going to do is just duplicate that, and that's just going to bump up that detail a bit more. Don't worry about seeing stretching, by the way. That's only because we have it at 2 million polygons at the moment, if you see at the top here. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to double it later on, and that'll just smooth that out a little bit. It'll be less pixelated. Got some questions in here. Keister says, how did you get confident talking in front of a camera? I didn't. This right here is 35 plus all the Monday live streams. This is just me just talking to a camera. Now, I did watch a couple of YouTube videos on big time YouTubers, I guess you call them, and they would say that the hardest thing about doing this live stream stuff or video content is to look at the camera, because I typically want to look up here, because right up here is my screen for all the StreamYard stuff, right? And so what they said, to get over the awkwardness of looking into a lens to camera, was to put a picture up around the lens. Now, I haven't done that yet, but they normally, they would say they put like a picture of friends or a person or a crowd on top of their camera, and then they would talk at the crowd, which then would, make their eyes look at the camera. So yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool technique to do or to use. But no, I typically look up here instead, because I'm looking at myself when I should be looking at you. But getting confidence is not an easy thing. It's just it's easy. It's actually easier if you know the subject that you're talking about. So if I was to talk about, I don't know, cats, let's say cats, right? I'd have no fucking clue. Sorry, language, but I'd have no clue on what cats are or the sort of history of cats or anything to do with cats information or whatever. But because I know enough about film or games and character design inside ZBrush, I find it a lot easier just to splurt things out, as I sculpt. In fact, it's even harder for me as a content creator, live streamer, or ZBrush artists in general, because you have to sculpt as well as talk at the same time, and that is just really difficult. So yeah, over time you just get used to talking to a camera, I guess. Mustafa says, where can I get best free alpha brushes? There used to be a ZBrush website where they had all the downloadable content for alphas and stuff, like a basic pack for alphas. I can't remember what it's called though. Let me just try and find it on my other monitor here. ZBrush. Alphas library. The ZBrush Central? I believe it must have been. Oh no, they're taking that down. Yep, that's not working. Yeah, it looks like they've taken it down. Yeah, it's not loading. It used to be a place called ZBrush Alphas, or sorry, ZBrush Central, and it used to be owned by Pixelogic, and then they would just have a couple of places on there. Maybe there's a place on ZBrush Maxim that they might have it. Let me just try and find it. Products. No, they've got other things in here, but I think it's all got to do with 2025. Yeah, I'm not sure. Sometimes in Artstation Marketplace they'll have some free stuff, so maybe try and check there as well. Mustafa says, I listened to music while sculpting and I noticed a big improvement in my sculpts. Yeah. I tend to put like a film on or a series on. That's I've watched before, so I don't get distracted by watching it. But yeah, music also does help. Casey says, I know a bit about cats. There are around 40 species, and the clouded leopard has the longest canine teeth relative to its body size. Oh, there you go. Joseph says, ZBrush Central on the Pixelogic website, as far as I remember. Is there still a Pixelogic website? I'm not sure if there is. Hold on. Pixelogic. If I can spell it properly. Rendering industry. Yeah, it's probably one of those things you're gonna have to dig through the internet archives to try and find. I can't find it right now. Oh wait, sorry. Casey says the link to ZBrush Alphas is there somewhere. Just yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Oh, what the hell's that? Let's just. What I'm trying to do is find those fins in this layers. This is also a good reason to use layers as well, because you can turn them on and turn them off, and you don't destroy the model underneath. So I want to duplicate this one, and that's going to automatically just double all of those details. So now you can see the details a little bit more enhanced, sorry, on there. And we didn't have to do any sculpting work, which is great. Cool. All right, so grab a standard brush. Just going to add a few more details into this thing before we start to render it. I think the top of the head here is a little bit too plain and boring, so I'm just going to add some alphas in here. Now, I'm not going to be precious about this, because, as I mentioned before, we'll probably do a lot of the work inside of ZBrush for this stuff. So what I'm going to do is just have some fun with this. And yeah, so just going to, oh, forgot to put alpha, modify surface. There you go. The reason I use that modify surface is because what happens when you bring an alpha in is that it has there's a black and a white, and the black is 0 and the white is 1, and the alpha sits between that, so there's gray matter in between, and that sort of represents the height. So 1 is high and black is none. If you have a gray, then it's a medium gray. Then there's a midpoint. With alphas, there's a mixture of white, black, and gray, and depending on the complexity of the alpha, it's going to change it's going to affect the model, right? So if I turn off the surface on this one, I bring this drag back in. Watch what happens to the model when I drag this alpha out. whoops, if I enhance it, sorry. You want to drag, actually, let's go back to the spray. Watch what happens when I try to spray this model with this alpha. You can see that it actually pushes downwards on the model. So it's affecting the shape of your model. So what you want to do to correct the alpha, or to bring the mid-range and closer to what the alpha is, or your model is just turn on surface. And that's going to automatically find the mid value of this alpha, which is 66. And now if we paint it on, you can see it doesn't actually affect the shape of your character. It just puts the alpha on top of the model. I'm just going to add some lazy space on that. There we are. Turn on the symmetry. So now what I'm doing is I'm just putting this sort of noisy layer on top, because I don't want to have anything too smooth, because it just makes it look a little bit boring when it's too smooth. Just going to add some of that to this as well. Turn on backface masking. There we are. Again, not being precious with it. If we were to do like a actual character, you'd probably be a little bit more careful with the alphas that you use, or the detailing that you use. But because we're just making this for a concept piece, we don't have to worry too much. All right. Yes, Keister, that's correct. It's also a good reason to name your alphas, because then you'd have to go through and pick them out one by one. Right. Now, just going to quickly update the tongue. So I'm just going to subdivide this a couple of times. And let's grab a alpha. Oops, and let's make it add. Turn on backface masking, and let's put a drag on it instead, get more control out of it. There we are. Trim dynamic. I'm just going to trim down the top a bit, the detail at the top, and then go back to the standard and grab alpha 23. I'm just going to add some little, oh wait, not 23, it's number 7, and just add some dimples to the, or taste buds to the tongue. That's what I like. I actually quite enjoy sculpting tongues like this. It's the fastest and quickest thing to sculpt. Just going to use a down standard to make a crevice in the middle, and then just using a down standard, just amplify some of these lines coming out the tongue sides. And what you can do as well is hit Alt on the keyboard and just drag a line, separation line through the sides there. And that should do it. That's not too bad. I'm just going to add one more line. Whoops. There, but I'm going to turn off the symmetry. There we are. Grab that bottom piece as well. Is everybody looking forward to Halloween? I know that I used to go out every Halloween, but getting older now, I don't seem to go out that much. But I do love the Halloween spirit. I know it's an American thing, and it was brought over here to England, and it's sort of Americanized stuff. But I don't know. It's just it's really cool to watch Halloween films during the Halloween season, especially the old ones like basically Halloween, and Freddy and Jason yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street and Jason. Those are sort of the favorites of mine. And then obviously we have just 2 months until Christmas, which is crazy because doesn't feel like yesterday that I was actually setting up the calendars that I have for this year, basically the plan for this year, which included starting these live streams. So yeah, it's nuts. Okay, teeth. The teeth are a bit bland, a bit boring. Let's just double these or subdivide these. Let's just check them real quick. Yep, they've all got their own poly groups. Just gonna solo this. So I'm not a massive sort of fan of doing teeth. I tend to just use very quick techniques for the teeth, seeing as it's going to be more about the overall look of his head. I think the teeth are quite small on him anyway. So just use a trim dynamic. I'm just going to trim it so it's not sharp. Oh, sorry, it's not circular. And that should about do it for the top ones. Now, you can take a little bit more care with it and actually isolate the tooth with using groups when sculpting, but I'm just a little bit in a rush right now for that. So I'm just going to quickly do it. What I'm looking forward to as well is Fallout Season 2. Is everyone looking forward to that as well? I think it's like the one show. I recently just finished watching the first season again. It just everything about it just, screamed Fallout, basically, or Fallout 4. And if they could just keep doing that with TV shows, then they could really, or with games, adaptations of games, then they could be on a winner. Okay, just now, I think all I do is I'm just going to subdivide again. Oh, wait, sorry. Let's turn off that layer first. Now, make sure that you're 100% happy with how your model looks before you go to this next stage, because we might need to bake all this detail down if it doesn't go right. So let me just subdivide it. All right, seems to be okay. Seems to have held its shape. That's good. Now, oh wait, let me just add a new layer. And let's just add some more detail quick. Just with the dam standard. Joseph says, as a father of a little boy, my new favorite scary movie is Fantastic Four First Day. Oh, God. Well, that is a horror film, let's be fair. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I've seen small snippets of it online. I'll tell you, it just doesn't come across as a film that I'd like to see. It's not really something that I'm into anymore. I think superhero films have had their day in the sun, and they need to just not go away completely, but just disappear for a few years. Let the actors who used to play them sort of grow old and bring new people in. You don't really want to see these old actors playing young roles anymore. Well, I don't. I mean, I think it's a bit silly, to be fair. But they're doing all this stuff with CGI now that they make the old look young, and there's this whole new article I just saw online about the first AI actress. Has anyone else seen that on their socials or anything like that? basically they're going to Hollywood are in plans to hire the first AI actress or actor to play in a role in a film. I don't know how they're going to do it, but apparently that's their plan, and it's not gone down well with the acting community, the actors, and there might be strikes because of it. Again, I mean, if they go through with it, then there really isn't any point in any of this, any of the CGI community or the acting community. You might as well just start using AI to do everything, really, which is just silly. I mean, what would anybody here, any of you guys, go watch an AI created film? Is that something anybody here is interested in? Maybe the first one, but it's like a gimmick, really, isn't it? It's not really something you want to buy into. Well, I hope not. Yeah, let me know in the comments what do you think about it. Are you guys for that sort of thing, or are you interested? Are you maybe curious? I'm a little bit curious for the first film, but if it starts to encroach on multiple films every time, all the time, then I'm just like, not really interested. Oh, Katie says, I just bought your Dragon Bus tutorial. Looking forward to learning that ZBrush to suit Photoshop's workflow. Oh, thank you very much. Hope you enjoy it. AI actress, what on earth? He says AI should literally just be for memes. Yeah, I agree. I'll just quickly see, what's that AI actress? AI actress. Her name is Tilly Norwood. And apparently she's going to be in talks with Hollywood to, I don't know if it's a joke or not, or if it's like a late April Fool's Day, but she'll be in talks apparently with Hollywood to be in a film. So see how that goes. I think it's just a gimmick, I think the whole thing is just going to be a gimmick. They're just going to use it because they know that they can stir up controversy with using it, and hatred, well, not hatred, but dislike for that, and so they can bank on it, Just adding some few details we might have missed out. We're just adding two. It's a bit too repetitive, that. Let me just undo those. Try and vary it up just a little bit. Yes, I do agree with you, Joseph. AI actress is a big no, just like AI in art. I agree. I think it's not needed. It's not something that is like, how do I say this? It's not something that's in demand, It's not like we are demanding to have AI in the entertainment sector. Like, if they use AI instead to find the cure for cancer, or, I don't know, build better software for journeys into space, I don't know, find the equation for getting out of debt, these countries to get out of debt, I don't know, anything like that, I think that AI would be great at solving math equations and that sort of thing. But for entertainment purposes, it's funny, but it's not something that should be in the realms of entertainment. Caster says director should use AI to sort of hint to concept artists what sort of thing they want, and then let the computer artists actually do it. That's can't really. I don't know if I can say that or not, but something similar has happened in the industry with that type of approach. I'll just say, and it's cool because the director can actually see what he wants, but the director, not the director even. I think it's like the art lead or the art director. Anyway, what will happen is they will use AI art. They'll see it in AI art images, right? Which always look perfect and brilliant, and you can't do nothing wrong and all that sort of thing. But actually making that work in a film with the CGI and the rendering systems and all that sort of thing is a lot more complicated than just making an AI image, like, for visual representation or visual looks. Because what happens is, what will happen if they take that on further is that they will create everything concept-wise in AI, and they want exactly that from AI, from the AI art. And there will be no kind of compromise unless they use it, and then they get concept artists to take parts of that and make it and sort of work around it, but I can see some advantages to using it for conceptual pieces as a visual way for directors to get what's out of their head on a piece of paper. But you're just messing with people's livelihoods, really, aren't you? When you're taking that approach. The whole fun of concepting and going through that concepting phase is the exploration, right? Like if you watch, I'm going to say this, if you watch the creation of Smaug from The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug, there was this part of the documentary where they constantly kept iterating on the dragon Smaug and the visual look of it, right? They had about 15 artists doing concepts. They even had random people who were working on the film do concepts because they couldn't find the dragon that they wanted. But it was through that method of iterating and looking at different variations of the dragon that they found the dragon that they wanted. If you just went to AI and did it straight out of the AI, then you wouldn't have that exploration of art to maybe go back and have a look and say, oh, actually, we might want that sort of thing instead. I don't know. I think an artistic touch to stuff is more beneficial than just going out and saying, oh, yeah, AI, give me this. Thank you. Doesn't sort of work with me. Doesn't sit well with me too much. But what do I know? I'm just a lonely little games artist or character artist. Yeah, I'm gonna put this on a new layer. What I want to do is just make a few of these on the side of his chin, on the side of his face here. Pull them out a little bit, as if they're growing out of his face. Yeah. Is that just doing it on one side? Oh, for goodness sakes. 1 second, guys. And you just undo that. And hit symmetry. And just do that again. All right. Kester asks, do you have any pets? I don't, actually. I don't have time to look after pets. I would love, and I have a very small flat, so I can't get any sort of animals in that regard. My schedules are very, very, very full at the moment. I used to own goldfish. I know it's not exactly a pet, but yeah, I owned goldfish before, and did all the tank stuff. And when they got too big, I bought another tank, and even that was a little bit too much for me to keep going with. I didn't kill them or anything; they just died of their own accord. But yeah, I just don't have the time, I guess, to look after a pet. I would love to have a cat, but one of my family members is allergic to cats, so I can't have a cat. And from what I've seen or heard from people who might own cats, there's some horror stories with owning cats. Same with dogs as well. I mean, I do like dogs, but they are kind of, you have to look after dogs. With a cat, you have to look after a cat, obviously. You have to feed it and stuff. But I find that they are quite happy to do their own thing, But with dogs, you have to have a routine with them, I guess, and look after them, and feed them, bathe them, go for walks with them. And I just don't have time for that. If I had a farm or a big plot of land, I'd happily get a dog, But yeah, unfortunately not. Joseph says AI should stop here, or with James Cameron will be right, or with time should stop here, or with time James Cameron will be right. Did he say the Terminator? Yeah, I get it. That's a good one. I mean, on every field of AI should stop here. I think biological fields, like things that will help humanity solve the riddles of disease and stuff, that they should keep that shit going, because that is something that's important to keep working on. Trying to rid the world of cancer or HIV or AIDS, or those sort of important things. It's a good idea to keep that going. But yeah, entertainment and all that, it's not that good. It's not that needed. Oh, right. Let me just have a look at these eyes real quick. Now, with the eyes of my characters, I normally just keep them as a sphere, and then I'll take it into ZBrush, and then into Photoshop, and I'll just plaster a picture of an eyeball on there and just, make it fit the concept, because you don't need to really go in here and start sculpting eyeballs and stuff for concepts. So, but what I think I will try is something different. I'm just going to duplicate this one. So I'm going to have a sphere on top of a sphere. I'm going to grab the clay buildup. I'm just going to give it some eyelids over the top. Just want to see how this will work. I think that's a little bit better. It's better than just having two blobs of, or two spheres just stuck in his head, right? Ooh. Right. Yeah, I'm not going to go too far with that. I think that works fine. Cool. I think we're getting there, guys. I think we're almost done. Now, what you could do is just go in here all ham and just really get in here and detail everything that you want, right? Now that we've laid down the foundations of the alphas, you can just go in here and just detail to your heart's content. Add some more folds into these wrinkles, some detail into them, depth and whatnot. But I think that's going to be good enough as it is. It's not looking too bad. Keister says, cats are really nice if you're nice to them. I've got a really close bond with mine. Yeah, I've got a weird story about that. So I remember when I was younger, I had an ex-girlfriend, and we were lying in bed, and the cat was outside the bedroom, and it wanted to be let out because it was an outdoor cat, sort of outdoor indoor cat, and so we didn't let it out because we were still sleeping, and so the cat got into the bedroom somehow, and just peed all over the bed with us in it, and it was the weirdest thing. So I was thinking to myself, that's the strangest thing, but apparently cats can be very very what do you call it? Not manipulative, but vindictive, right? So if you don't do what they tell you to do, or if you change their routine or anything like that, they will take it out on you in ways like, peeing on you or peeing in your bed, or stuff like that. It's something I saw online as well. Someone else had the exact same thing happen to them. Their cat was annoyed because it wasn't fed at a certain time, so it just came into their room and peed on them. So, yeah, brilliant. But yeah, I do like cats. I like the way that they are completely free to do with it whatever they want with their life. They don't have to worry about a thing apart from being fed, obviously, or danger from predators if there is any. But they have a very, very cushy life most of the time. Sort of jealous, Right. Before we get onto the texturing, there's another trailer I wanted to share with you. It's actually something that I really enjoyed watching when it came out. It's the movies. It's the Welcome to Derry, Welcome to Derry, HBO Max trailer. I'll just take a quick break from this modeling, real quick, and we'll just have a look at the trailer for this one.
Hello? Oh, hi. I'm Rich, by the way. Will.
Was renting a house in town. 8 years living on base. I just think my missus is ready for a little taste of normal.
Well, if normal is what you're after, you two are going to love Derry.
You don't like it much down here, do you, Miss Handler?
It's hard not to miss the things you leave behind.
We're getting into the swing of it, though. Starting to feel like home.
Things happen here. We don't really talk about it. No one does.
They never even found a body. But maybe you could figure out what really happened to him.
Could have been a drifter.
Do you think somebody could kidnap a kid and keep him underground? In the sewers?
We'll have another Heller.
We have 25 disappearances, 7 confirmed deaths, mostly children.
Something bad's coming.
What is that?
Wow, that's pretty cool, actually. Did anyone else catch the amount of references to Stephen King books in that. We just say so Kesa says, do you need to be careful with audio because of copyright? Not really, because all my live streams are non-monetized, so I don't make any money out of these apart from the memberships who get to see it after a week. I don't make any money off these live streams. Joseph Bunkowski says, have you read the book, It? No, but I have been told, I have seen or heard of that there's a specific area in that book which is very, don't touch with a barge pole type thing. But yeah, I haven't read the book yet. Apparently it's quite thick and a lot of it is very descriptive, I believe. But if you saw in that trailer, there was 2 references I could see from 2 other books. I think it's Stephen King's books? The Shawshank Redemption, obviously, the prisoner on the wording on the bus on the side, and also was Stephen King the guy who wrote the book The Mist? There's a section in there when they were running away from a mist. So I thought that was quite a cool little Easter egg as well. But yeah, looking forward to that. I haven't got HBO, but I'll be able to. I'll probably like purchase HBO just to watch that and then just unsubscribe afterwards. But yeah, what do you guys think of that trailer? What do you guys actually think of It as well? Of the first film. Okay, I'm going to be careful with this. Not the first It film from 2000s, but the first It film from way back. And also, what do you think of the It films that have recently been out? I love them. I think the whole idea or the concept of it worked really well. And it the first one was better than the second one, but they both work really well. And the guy who plays the character, the actor, the clown, is really good at what he did, I think. Cool. All right, so we are now about ready to texture this thing. So before I go ahead and texture this thing, what I like to do is I'm going to just come over here, well, down here, sorry. Actually, let's save it first. I'll just save this one first as number 4. Yep. Just so we have a copy to go back on in case we want to go back and detail it, because what I need to do is come down to layers, and I'm just going to bake all of these down. So I'm just going to say bake all. Give that a minute. Whoa. I don't know what's happened there. Before you actually bake anything, make sure you turn off the record. There we are. It's very important you do that, otherwise you get that weird sort of pixelation thing going on. So now I'm going to bake all, and that's better. So we have the detail all on one piece now, and it's just going to make it easier to texture as well. And yep, we don't need this top one anymore, so we can just come ahead and delete. Actually, let's just quickly see. So, whoops. So you can kind of see from the block out stage, which is what I call the block out stage. A lot of other people might say it's a bit too far as a block out. A block out is supposed to be getting the shapes right, getting some of the forms, but not going really detailed. Typically, what I like to do is go about 80% detailed in the block out, because I can have fun and play around with it still. And then the rest of it is just detailing with alphas and stuff. But you can kind of see how far we've gotten with it. And it's not too bad, actually. It doesn't look too bad. I always like looking at these things, side by side after a while, so I can kind of see how far I got with it, and how detailed I got with it as well. But we don't actually need that one at the top anymore, so I'm just going to delete that, and we're just going to keep this one. Cool. Kesa says, actually not seen any of. You haven't seen any of them. Well, that's your homework for this October, I guess. What you need to do is you need to watch It, the old one, the 2 It films, Shining, and The Mist. And you don't have to watch Shawshank because everyone knows that one. But definitely watch the It films because I think those are really good. But definitely watch the first one before you watch the new ones. Joseph Bonkowski says, I agree, first one was better. Yeah, I think it's because it's the whole children angle, and when they were grown up, they were just a little bit too boring to watch, you know? I think, as well as that, it had, the first one had that feeling about it. Now, when I say that feeling about it, it has that nostalgic feeling. So, a couple of these films have the same thing. You have the It film, the first one, and then you have Stranger Things, which is, you know, very nostalgic. You have, and they also have, what's that? Oh, I can't remember that. Super 8, I believe it's called. I don't know if you heard of Super 8. All 3 of them are major nostalgia factors, right? And they all sort of have the same feeling as E.T., like it's like Steven Spielberg films like E.T., Jaws, and a couple of the others. But it's the sort of growing up feeling, as well as putting you in a period in time where that technology used to be new to them, but it's old to you, but you know what it is. A lot of the Gen Zs or Gen X's or Alphas, I don't know what they're called anymore. There's so many bloody gens at the moment. But a lot of them wouldn't know what a VHS is, or an Atari is, or, I don't know, a Walkman, maybe a bicycle. Take your pick. They wouldn't know any of that. But for us, we do know it, so it's kind of nostalgic, and it makes you want to go back to a time like that and enjoy that time. And that's why you enjoy the film more, is because you don't have these bloody smartphones, you know, or the internet or anything like that. And that just makes it a lot more inviting as a film. To me, personally, it makes me more invited to films. That's why I think Stranger Things works so well, because it goes through periods of time which are different to each other, but close to each other. And the sort of the fashion grows and the technology grows with it. And you can kind of see it generationally, you know. Cater says, I call that phase mid-frequency. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could call that phase mid-frequency, I guess. Yeah, it says, so many gens at the moment, couldn't agree more. Yeah, I know. I don't even want to get into that debate. There's just too much shit going, stuff like that, my language, stuff like that going on at the moment. Okay, so typically I'd start with the Skin Alpha, or the Skin Shade 4, sorry, not Skin Alpha. And this one is great because to me, it gives me the best visuals for the color that we're going to use on the character. So I never ever, just move this out of the way quick. So I never ever work on basic material for color, or where is that one? Matte Cap Gray, or even worse, where is that bloody startup one? That one. This is by far the worst material I think ZBrush has ever made. And the funny thing is, it's the default material. So when you load ZBrush for the first time, you get this ugly monstrosity of a color, or matte cap. It's the worst material ever made, but never use it, okay? So going back to the Skin Shade, I go into materials, because at the moment it's got quite a bit of reflectivity going on, specular highlight going on. So to counter that, I'm coming down to modifiers, and on the specular, I'm just going to drop this to about 0.05, and I'm just going to blow out all that specular. And I'm not going to worry too much about that, because we're going to use matte caps to change that later. Cool. Let's just come up here. So under the subtools, I'm going to turn off, hitting Shift on the keyboard, and then the touching on the little brush there will turn it on and off, but it will turn it on and off for all of them. Okay. And we make sure it's all turned off. Now we don't want to affect the material, we just want to affect the color. So make sure you don't have material selected or material and color selected. Make sure it's just the RGB settings up there. And we're going to, I like the look of this one, to be fair. I like the way this one's got color on it and the way it looks with color. We could go to the original sort of colors, but they're so muted and and boring. Maybe we can try something different with our one. So let's start off with a slight gray. I'm also going to change this to the paintbrush. Make sure the intensity is at 100. Come over to color and just fill the object. Now I'm going to fill the object on all of them with the same color. Apart from the tongue, which will be what looks like a pink. There'll be too colorful with it, so just make it like a slight off pink. As well as the teeth, they're going to be some sort of sandy color, bone type color. And then the eyelids, which are these ones, we'll make them slightly darker, or actually we'll make them the same color as the skin. And then the eyeballs. Now, because we're going to replace them later on, I'm just going to pick like a orange for now, or a yellowy orange, just so that we have something there to look at. It's not really going to be needed later on. Just going to fill that object. There we are. So we have the base colors. So if you're a Warhammer enthusiast or if you're a miniature enthusiast, this would be your base colors plopped onto your character. And now we need to go in and start to use paintbrush to paint extra textures on top, or colors on top. Kaser says, I'm thinking of doing a dragon based on a Gyral? When I follow along your dragon bus tutorial. Guy? I'm going to have to look that up. Oh, that funny looking crocodile. Yeah. It means this sort of thing. With a long snout. That's pretty cool. I look forward to seeing it. All right, so the first thing I'd like to do is paint in the dark areas. So just turn off the lazy mouse. If you hit L on the keyboard, it'll turn off lazy mouse. So just where the eyeballs are, that'll be a dark area. Just zoom out real quick. We can paint the back of the scales here. Just turn down the RGB a bit, a little darker. So if you think about how light touches the top of a character or a creature, like a crocodile, for instance, it's darker tones on the top and it's lighter tones on the bottom. So it's lighter tones along the chest area than it is along the top and the sides. So we can kind of add that in there. You can actually change the colors of this later. We're just trying to get a nice color tone going for it at the moment. And we just do the same thing for the fins or the dorsal blades. Just try to blend those in like so. And then I'll come over to the mouth. Now the mouth will be the same color as, where is it? Yeah, same-ish color as the tongue. So just grab the color. If you're wondering how I'm color picking, it's just using the C on the keyboard. If you hit C on the keyboard, it'll color pick exactly what you're hovering over. So that's a good bit of information there. And just gonna fill in the mouth area and the interior. And I'm going to just clean up this area with the color pick of the gray again. There we are. Okay, what's next? We need to do the chest area a little bit. So, as I said before, we're going to slightly go off kilter or off design with this. So instead of having a dark all round, I quite like the idea of having maybe this type of skin on the bottom here, a bit whiter, just to break it up from the dull tones of darkness. So just under here will be a little brighter. And the eyelids, we're just going to fill those in with the same color as the eye bags. Oops. There we are. Cool. So we have the shades done, right? Now I'm going to do what people in the miniatures or Warhammer community would call inking. I guess it's called inking, or null oil effect, where you basically try to get the crevices, you mask out the crevices and cracks, and then you use that mask to drive texture on top or underneath. So I'll quickly show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to hit the masking button on the right hand side here, come over to the cavity, turn up the blur, intensity at 100, and I'm just going to change the sort of graph here so it's a bit more curved than straight. And I'm just going to hit mask by cavity and just wait for it to do its thing. So now you can see all the cavities are now masked out, right? Now, if you adjust this area or this curve here, you can get different effects on your mask. And also, if you take the intensity down, it'll also change the intensity for it as well. Sometimes it works a bit better than others, other times. I think that's as good as we're going to get. Anyway, so let's say that we like that, right? Let's say we like that. What I can do now, instead of having this harsh mask going on, we can use a couple of these tools here to adjust the mask, right? So you can blur it, so it just blurs it a little bit. You can grow it, so you can grow the mask bigger. You can boost it, which just boosts it. If you blur it and then you boost it, it'll just add extra density to it. You can also sharpen the mask or shrink the mask or dilute the mask. Not quite sure what that one does. We've never used it. But yeah, we can actually shrink the mask and then we can blur it and then we can boost it. And in that way, all the cavities in between are now masked out and we can invert it, hide it, and then come in here with a lighter color and just paint in between. Make sure you maybe pull down the RGB a little bit, and you can come in here now and get in between those crevices and cracks because the mask is still active, and you can get some dirt in between those scales. Lighter areas in between the scales. You can also paint them darker if you like, but I find it's much better to use maybe use references, but typically there'd be lighter areas. Not all the time, but most of the time. Especially where the lighter point meets the darker point, which is about here. You can kind of bleed it into those areas. All right. Okay. And then what you can also do is you can invert the mask. Now, before I do that, I'm going to mask it by cavity again. I'm going to invert it. and boost it, grow it, boost it, invert it. That's not going to work. 1 second. Let me just try that again. Invert it, grow the mask. Let's try boosting it. Nope. Sharpen. That's not going to work. I think that'll be done. I'll be fine like that. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to mask off the top pieces, right? So when we paint on top, it's now painted on top of that scale. I'm gonna come in here, choose a different color, just testing it. Test it down here in these ones. Okay, so not too bad. You could also change the color if you like. Maybe add some different hues in here, like purples and stuff. Could be. You gotta be very careful with the colors that you choose, or you pick, you know. It's all about color palette as well. If you use a very dull type color palette like we are right now for the sort of scales or for the general character, you don't want to then go and add vibrant colors to your model. You have to keep it within the realms of its sort of realism. You know, if you're creating a character that was meant to be colorful, then you would definitely not choose dull colors. Vice versa, if you're doing a more realistic character, you wouldn't want to use cartoonish type sort of textures, you know. Just gonna view this mask again. I'm gonna blur it, and we're just to paint these side pieces more whiter pink, as if it's stretched. There we are. And then we can clear the mask and just come in here and add a bit more to it. You can even add a little bit of off yellow white in here. Might be a bit too much off-white. Sometimes you also find a little bit of purple in these areas. Komodo dragon's a good point of reference for this sort of thing, the inside of its mouth. There we go, down the side here. Should clean this a bit. Now, you can also change the colors. If you're not happy with how it looks and you think it needs a little bit of desaturation, general desaturation, you can come over to the poly paint, and under adjust colors, you'll get this new window up. And if you just zoom in, you can change the hue and saturation, so you can change the overall colors. And it won't go into effect until you hit OK, by the way. So, or you can change the saturation. Just leave that intensity alone. You can also do the contrast, gamma, intensity, all of these settings here. I don't really tend to do much in this window because I tend to just go with whatever I've painted and take it into Photoshop and do it later anyway. So, but it's a good little tip here. This colorize thing, in case you wanted to adjust it inside of ZBrush. Back to standard brush. Actually, back to the paintbrush. And I just want to use some alphas. Just gonna see how this goes. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I just like to vary it up a little bit with a pattern on the skin. You see these sort of patterns going on here. You can do the same thing with this. Now you can also go and download other types of, what do you call them, alpha maps. But again, you probably can take this into Photoshop and do this mostly inside of Photoshop. Just adds a little bit of breakup. Okay, so it says Komodo dragons are weird. They have teeth, but their gums are so thick that you can't really see them. Yeah, I found that weird as well. I always, when I was young, I always thought they had no teeth, and I thought because their venom is a paralyzing agent, I believe. It's got a toxin in it that paralyzes their victim, or poisons their victim. I thought that's how they attack them first, wait for the poison to take effect, and then they just swallow them whole. Well, they do swallow them whole, but swallow them whole. I didn't realize they had teeth in them for a long time either. I actually never thought about using poly paint with alphas. That looks like a great technique. Yeah, I mean, you can use poly paint. You can use alphas for anything, really, especially with power painting your characters. So there's no reason not to. It's a quick and easy fire way to add a bit more detail. You can see now how it looks like it's a bit more detailed and a bit more interesting in this area since using that. There is also other masking techniques. We'll just find the mask. So you can mask by peaks and valleys. And what that's going to do is just going to spit out the high points and low points. And what you can do is blur that, maybe blur it a couple of times, grow it a little bit, and then get your paintbrush back. And this would kind of act like a bleaching of the skin. You could use this for, right? So if I color pick this area, I bring up the color here. You see how on this model here, it's got this kind of bleached effect on some of the scales, especially on the side here as well. Kind of gives it that aged look as well. Well, you can do that with that peaks and valleys, you know. You can sort of change the colors along the concept and bleach it a little bit. Maybe put more white into it to bleach it even more. It all depends on your preference as well. I might just add a little bit of this, but not too much. There we are. It's a good idea to, if you're doing these kind of creatures that are very dark, especially Godzilla. He's always seen as a very dark creature, even in the sunlight. If it's a concept piece, don't be afraid to add color to it, because it's better to have color than just have a completely black design. You know, you don't really want to be doing using black in a lot of your creature, unless it's obviously a completely dark character, but they tend not to be too dark a character in the concept pieces. They tend to have a bit of vibrance to them, and then once they put them in the film, then they make them really dark, so you can't see them, which is always the case. Right, that's not looking too bad. Okay, obviously got the tongue in here. Just gonna quickly add some different hues of pink on it. You can even make the tongue a little bit darker on the end of the tip of the tongue. Paint the inside of the mouth a little bit. Don't forget to clear your masks as well once you're finished. You don't want to have a mask on the whole time. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm ready to pose this character now. Caser says, their venom prevents blood clotting, so it includes shock, not necessarily paralyzing. Oh, okay. I guess it's kind of like a shock factor that plays into the... a paralyzing factor that plays into the shock, so your body gets shocked and gets paralyzed by it as well. Is that maybe what happens? Interesting though. Right, so next thing I like to do is to pose it. Because we have some reference images down here, it's going to be very easy to pose this. So I'm just going to come over to the Z plugin. Another reason to delete the layers as well is because of what happens next. So come over to Transpose Master, turn on the layers. So when you turn on layers, it basically tells ZBrush that you want to retain a layer where all this information of posing your creature is going to be in, and then it saves the original pose, so you can turn it on and off, and you can have both on it, both posed and non-posed model. So you can always go back, texture it some more, sculpt it some more, then pose it, then turn on the layer of pose, and it will pull it back into the pose, which is really cool actually. Next thing I'll do is T-pose mesh. Just let it do its thing. There we are. Cool. So this is a very simple posing technique. Just need to figure out, do I want the mouth open or do I want the mouth shut? That's the very important thing. I mean, what you could do is you could have a version of it shut and a version of it open. What you'd have to do is, using this layer, is mask out the lower jaw using a masking lasso brush. Soften the mask and then close the jaw like so. Maybe position things a little bit so it's a little bit cleaner. Right, let's say that is the mouth pose when it's closed, right? It's a bit strange, but let me just pull this up. So that's the pose of the mouth closed. We can then come up to Z plugin and hit T-pose subtool. What that's going to do is just going to pose that now for us. So that is going to be the closed state. And what I might want to do actually is, let me just redo this. So to do that, I'm just going to delete that layers, because we've changed our mind. So just delete these layers real quick. All right, so we now have our, oh, hold on, let me just get the fins. We have our model back to where it was. And under Z plugin, layers, T-pose mesh, just gonna do that again. And we're gonna redo this because I want the lower jaw to be slightly open, right? Something like that. It's a much more interesting look. And then the tongue, if we turn on oh, it's not going to work, is it? If we rotate the tongue down a little bit and pull it up, there we are. So actually, we could actually hide the tongue because it won't be seen, so we could just hide it in its closed state. Let me just come in here and pull these down, clean this up. Symmetry on would be nice. Right. Okay, so that is the closed state. Right. And now I'm going to pose the head so that it's not straight on, it's more looking to a different angle. So just go back in, T-pose mesh. And I'm going to pose the head. So, whoops. Just going to pull it to one side. You gotta kind of, when you're doing this posing, it's a good idea to have a camera position in mind, right? So when you're looking at your model, are you going to be taking a still image from this side, or are you going to be taking a still image from this side? And you kind of want to get a very interesting looking pose as well. You don't want to have a very boring one where it's just looking deadpan straight towards the camera, because you don't see a lot of them, right? You want to be able to see Godzilla in its full, or as much as possible. So don't just do it as a boring type pose. Make sure you get a nice looking pose when you or you have an idea of a good looking pose when you're doing this. Now these fins on the back here are going to be a bit of a pain, but it's not too much of an issue. What I want to do is I want to have him kind of looking off to the distance, right? So he's kind of looking off to the distance, and we'll have one where his mouth is open and one where his mouth is shut. We could probably even do it from this angle. We'll see. We'll see. I think this is a much better angle. You can kind of see his whole volume. Don't be afraid to hide half of his face if you have to. We can have that as that's pretty cool. You can even do it from the side. So he's looking off into the distance. So let's say that we like that. I'm just going to hit T-pose. Now, if my calculations are correct, oops, coming down to the layers, and I turn off the top one, we should have an open jaw. Hey. Hey, look at that. And we turn off these ones. He's now screaming. Bit off kilter, but yeah, it's not too bad. Won't be seen, basically, once we have it posed. Let's just close his mouth again. I think I like him without his mouth open, to be fair. I think it looks a bit more serious. Of course, you could also do the same thing with the mouth fully open. So we've turned off that layer, turn off this layer, and this layer. We can then go into Z plugin, T-pose mesh again. And we can now come in here. Just make sure we don't get what we don't need. Mask off the lower jaw. And open this up quite wide. I don't know why it's pulled so far to the side. There might be some correcting needed with the move brush. So and we can also move the top jaw up a little bit. I know the top jaw is supposed to be still, but just move it just a tad to give the impression of a kind of snarl. And even the head itself can be pulled up. Now there's some cleanup here that needs to be done. Just move these out. Now you can typically spend weeks, maybe days, just posing a character using this technique, right? Or these techniques with the transpose move brush and all that sort of thing. Depending on how good you want your pose, if you just want to have something real quick to throw into Photoshop and composite, then doing the way I'm doing here very quickly works well. But if you want a really good pose, then you'll spend a lot more time on it. So now we have Godzilla with a proper mouth. Oops, let me just... Oh, for goodness sakes. 1 second, guys. I'm just going to fix this. There we are. Know what happened there. Right. Turn that off. There we are. So now we have a proper Godzilla roar going. Or as proper as you can be. It's not perfect. But we can turn this off. Because what I want to do is have him with his mouth shut. So I'm just turning off all those layers that we just did. Apart from, I'm just turning off the bottom layer to get back to that state that we had him in. fact, we don't need the tongue. We could just hide that tongue. I think that's a better... That's going to be a better render, I think. Cool. That took longer than I thought. We've got a few in here. 1 second. Keita says, character really comes to life when you just turn it slightly and make it asymmetrical. Yeah, exactly. And you can even make it asymmetrical. Like you said, asymmetrical. You could just move one of the eyebrows up, one of the eyebrows down, a nostril up, a nostril down. You know, just make it less symmetrical in those turns, and you can get away with quite a lot. Looks more menacing with mouth shut. I agree. Brilliant. Good. Cool. So, I'm going to do some rendering. What's the time? 1:38. Yeah. Should be able to get the rendering done. Cool. I'm going to move this out the way because we don't need this anymore. What I like to do is change the document size to something more appropriate. So 180 by 1920, because it's going to be portrait. Oh no, sorry, not 180. What am I talking about? It's 1270 by 1920. I think that's what it is. Control N. Just going to zoom out real quick. There we are. There's our guy, and you can see we have a slight issue with the perspective. It's just too, well, it looks pretty cool from this angle, but it's too much. And that's because we're at a horizontal, which is landscape rather than portrait. So we need to go vertical, and that'll just fix that. Now you can leave that at 50 if you want, right? Or you can change it to 85, or you can go even higher than 85 and have it really flat on your canvas instead. And that's more akin to sort of conceptual drawing, you know, perspective wise. I like to keep it, normally I like to keep it about 85. So it's just slightly flatter than 50. But I've also been on occasion going up into the 120 or higher, especially in Keyshot, because I like that flat look to the image, you know. When you start to play, when you start to go flatter, it starts to bring it out just a little bit better. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Cool. So I'm trying to center it so I get the maximum amount of headroom in our character, in our image. Right. I might have to bring down the draw a little bit. Just a little bit. How much? It's just how much of a rotation do you need? You know, that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. Do I want to have it really rotated to the side, or do I want a slight angle on his face, or do I want to even go to the other side of his face? I mean, that's pretty cool as well. I think that's actually better because it's working against the movement of his face. He's sort of looking in that direction, so you probably want to be looking at his face from this direction rather than from that direction. So it all depends on you guys, on your preference, I think. And we can, yeah, that's much better. Anyway, you can just blend this out like they did here with these images. We can kind of just blend it out into the mist, so it kind of looks like he's coming through the mist in Photoshop. So once you're happy with the position of your camera, it's best to either lock your camera, right, or come up to Documents, Z App Link Properties, and save the view. So when you move out of position, you just come over to Cluster 1, and it'll put you right back where you were. I'm just going to change that focal point again. or focal length. I'm really undecided about the focal length. I think that's going to be fine. Yeah, that'll do. Cool. So, new technique for rendering. Let me just grab a glass of water or jug of water. Normally what I'll do is render everything individually and then take it in Photoshop and composite it inside of Photoshop. But what I want to do instead is do as much compositing inside of ZBrush before I take it into Photoshop. And there's a cool technique that you can use using a thing called BPR filters. But firstly, we want to get the light right. So we want to make sure the light is in the right direction on our character. And I have a little light shortcut here, but you can also come up to lights and change the position of the light up here as well. But I'm just going to use the one down here. So what we're going to do is just play around with the light, because what I want is light information and shadow information, right? So I'm just going to hit that. So you can see here, the shadow is hiding his face a bit too much. I like the shadow in the position underneath his neck. But I think if we move the light around to the front and side, this will be better. Maybe. Let me just move that again. It's also a good idea that before you start to play around with the shadow settings and the ambient occlusion setting is to use the default rendering settings to make sure you have the best position of your light. What happens if we put the light at the top? That's too much. As we put it at the bottom. Not enough light. You can change the distance of the light as well, which might help. In some cases, it might not be doable to not have a shadow where the eye is, so we'll have to adjust it inside of Photoshop later. Like add some color in there, highlight that area a little bit more later on. If you tap on the sphere, it'll actually push the light to the back of the character as well, which is a super helpful tip. You know what? That's pretty close, I think. I think that's pretty close to what we want. I'm just going to move it slightly up a bit. So, let's take it away from the eye now. So let's move that back down. And let's just get the distance to 100 again, to see what it looks like. You know what? I think that is going to be okay. Let's just have a look against the reference. Let's just see what they did. So there's a lot of, there's not a lot of shadow information on theirs either. Majority of it, yeah. So it looks like their light source is coming from the left-hand side downwards as well. I think that's going to be fine. Yeah, let's leave it at that. So we have our light set up and our shadow set up. Next thing to do is come over to render, go to render properties, turn on ambient occlusion. Under the shadows, BPR shadows, I'm just going to bump up the rays. And also add a little bit of angle. This is just going to smooth it and blur it a little bit more than just having a hard sort of shadow effect on him, right? Sorry, just taking my socks off because it is hotter than hell in this office room right now. So I'm just going to add a little bit of angle to the shadows. And just do a quick render of this. Yeah, you see the shadows are a little bit softer along the edges, which is great. It's actually got that evil look to it with that shadow, so that's actually going to work in our favor. Cool. Where's the BPR? So the ambient occlusion needs to be set up. So the best settings for this that I found, so I'm not going to explain all the little details, but the resolution is roughly got to be about 4,000. Raise 180 is fine. Blur 1 will be fine for blur. You don't want to have too much blur because you want to kind of crisp ambient occlusion. And then we're just going to make sure that that is saved and hit BPR. Okay. That's going to all be in here. So you can see we have our ambient occlusion, we have our shadow, our depth, shaded, mask, and composite. What I want to do now is show you the techniques to composite and render majority of the work inside of ZBrush and then take it into Photoshop and have less work, relatively less work to do inside of Photoshop because majority of it's done inside of ZBrush. So you're going to come down to BPR filter and it's going to open up this window, and there's a lot of stuff going on here, but I'm just going to show you the things that I use. I'm not going to go into detail everything, just going to show you the things that I use to better my renders, I guess you could say. So each one of these is an effect that you can use. So if you see here, just under here, the filter, these are called filters. It says this is a noise filter, this is a blur filter, this is a sharpen filter, and this is an orton filter, and so on and so forth. If you turn on that filter, it should do something, but it's not. Let me just try the other ones. Oh, not sharpen, this one. There we are. So you can see, if you turn on orton is kind of like a lighten effect. It lightens the image. Make sure that when you're using this technique, by the way, you have to have a BPR render on. You can't just have it without the BPR render on. So if I click anywhere on the map, on the screen here, and then I try to use these, you can see they're not working on the screen. It's because you have to have BPR on to use the filters. So I'll just wait for that to render out again. There we are. And now you can see we can come in here and turn it on and off. So I want to actually have this. I actually use this orton quite a bit when I'm doing the sort of compositing side of ZBrush, just to brighten the character, because once you start adding more layers on top or materials and effects on top, the image is going to get quite dark. So I'm just going to turn it down a little bit. Now you can see it's actually affecting the background as well. It's not a major issue, but if you don't want it to affect the background, just make sure you come down to this masking layer here and turn that all the way up to 100. And that's just going to use a black and white alpha. Basically, you see this little image up here, the silhouette. Imagine that's inverted. So all the black stuff, which is your model, will be masked out or masked in, and all the white stuff, which is the background, will be masked out. That's what that is doing there. So if I turn this to -1, you can see the character is not affected, but the background is. And if I turn this back up to 100, it's the character that's affected and not the background. So we can use that also for shadow. So any shadow information, if we pull this to 1, it's going to affect the mask for the shadow. I think let me just come up here again. Yeah, that should be fine. So if you wanted to affect the shadow, not affect the shadows, make sure it's at -1. If you wanted to be on the to mask out the shadows, then put it on to 1. Hope that makes sense. I'm going to do that same thing for the ambient occlusion because I don't want it to affect the ambient occlusion. I just want to affect the model without the shadows and the ambient occlusion. So that's filter number 1. I'm actually going to come back to filter number 3, and that's just going to sharpen the overall image. Don't worry, we're going to go into Photoshop later, and we're going to sharpen the image in there anyway, but it's nice to have a little bit of sharpen on the image as well. We don't have to have too much. Now, I don't really use the first two because there's no point in using those ones. But when it gets to filter number 5, I then come down here to material shading, select that, and then I'm going to come over to this texture box, and I'm going to select matte cap skin 04. And then in this texture, within this blending mode, you can have it as any one of these blends. Think of this as Photoshop now. These are the Photoshop blending modes that you can use, right? So we can use it on the screen, overlay, soft lay, and it's going to adjust that. It's not going to be exactly like Photoshop's, but it's going to try to act like it as much as possible. And so if I come up here and I say, let's put it on an add, so that's going to add to the image. You can then come in here and change the opacity and the effect the shading has. And I just want to have a little bit of effect on it. The next one, again, I'm going to change this to a material shade. Basically, what I'm doing is just using this filter system as material shades so that I get the render that I like. I'm going to put a reflective map. And I'm going to put this to add. Now, probably best not to use the reflective one in this, seeing as you can't control it as well as you can inside of Photoshop. So you probably want to render this one separate and then do it inside of Photoshop so you can mask out certain areas you don't want to have that reflective effect on, right? So maybe we'll leave this one for a different map. Actually, let me just select that. Render it again. And now we can see from a little preview window what we're going to get from these images. Or these materials, sorry. Let's try that one. I'm going to soft light that. Overlay. Lighten. Yes, put that as a lighten. Just pull this down a little bit. Now, it might not look like you're adjusting a lot, but you know, subtlety is the key when doing this sort of thing. Let's put on that multiply. Sorry, not multiply. I think it's overlay. Overlay. I'm just going to bring this down a bit. Not affect the shadows or the ambient occlusion with this one. And effect number 8. Now this you can only get to, you can only have 12 filters on this, so you got to think of exactly what you want to be using these for. Where can I find? I'm trying to stay away from too much darkness. Let's take this one. Add. Drop the shadow and the ambient occlusion and turn on the mask. Because you can always add more darkness inside of Photoshop, right? Think of it as watercolors. Yeah, watercolors. When you're using watercolors in painting, you typically want to have more lighter colors than darker colors. You want to work with lighter colors rather than too much dark. So don't put dark down first and then put light colors on top. You start from light and work your way down to dark. That's the kind of mentality that I have when I'm thinking about doing these sort of renders. So too much darkness can ruin an image. Too much. So it's best to stay in the lighter areas and then darken later. This is a BPS, this is a red filter. Let me just change that. Over here. Right. Trying to find something we haven't used yet. You can really experiment with all this as well. You don't have to just, do exactly what I'm doing, but you can go in there and you can find some interesting things. You can even turn it on and off to see the effect of it as well. I don't like this one. Let's try a different one. Let's just want on a overlay. An add. Is that too much? Might be too much, that one. Too much metal. I mean, you're going to get to a point where you probably don't want to add too many, right? So you might just keep it very simple. Let's try that. Soft light. Just going to go back to this Auton and just bump this up a bit. As well as the sharpen, I'm going to bump that sharpen back up. There we are. I think that's a good point. I mean, the rest of it can be done inside of Photoshop later. So if we come over to if we're happy with what we got right now, we can come back over to the render passes. Now, you're going to see a difference between the shaded version and the composite version, right? The composite version is linked to the BPR filters, and the shaded version is just the box standard render that you get from Photoshop, from ZBrush, and it's not the one that we want to use. We want to be using the composite, the BPR composite. But before we do that, we need to turn off. It's kind of a weird way of working around it, but I just wanted to see what the image looked like with all factors. But we want to turn off the ambient occlusion and the shadow first, so that we don't get that information on the final image, so that we can do all of that inside of Photoshop. So we can, play around with the shadow and the ambient occlusion separately to the render and composite it inside there. So I'm going to use the composite, not the shaded. I'm just going to click on that. Now I've got it open on the side here, because I have documents in here that I can't really show. But typically what I'll do is just make a new folder, call it Photoshop. I'm doing this off screen. And then save the Photoshop PSD composite, BPR composite save. And that just saves that one. I'll save the depth as a BPR depth and the mask as a BPR mask. And then I'm going to come back to render properties, turn on the ambient occlusion and the shadow again, just render those out. It's going to take a little while. There we are. Okay, render pass. I'm just going to take the shadow information, save that as a BPR shadow, and the ambient occlusion information, and save that as BPR AO, or ambient occlusion. And that's it. That's it for the filter, the BPR filter composite final image. The next thing I want to do is come back over to here, turn off the ambient occlusion and shadows again, and change the skin material to a flat color. This is why I didn't put the material, the MRGB, or the material as the color layer. and painted with those on, because I can now come in here and use this flat color and render that flat color before I export it. Just going to Gumroad BPR filters and turn off all of these filters because we've already got the image that we want, so we don't need these anymore. We just want that flat color information. And I'm just going to save out the shaded version of that. Call it BPR flat. And then I'm going to turn off all the color on all the model. And then come in here and do some rendering of some materials. So we can take these materials into Photoshop and composite them on top of the final image. So basically we want the wet version. So that's like the wet skin. New folder and call it number 1 because I'm lazy. Then come back in here. We want the normal map for lighting purposes, and I'll tell you about that later on. And we can just come in here and pick some random ones in here if you want to, get some more information. So I'm just going to pick a few that I think will work nicely with them, or help it even. Oh. No. Trying to find a good one here. This might be nice. It's got a nice sort of lighting look to it. I've never used this one either, so it'd be quite interesting to see if this one works or not. Let's just take this one as well. You never know. You might want to use it, you might not. You can always come back in and render out other ones either anyway. But that's going to do it for those. Then I'm going to grab some lights. So go to blend. I usually use a blend for this. Make sure it's a black, fully black. Come up to the lights tab and increase the intensity. And you can adjust the distance of the light as well if you want. Just going to render out a couple of lights. So just using that sphere down there, which represents the lights. Just going to render out a couple of lights real quick. Lighting information, specular information. Call this number 1. And I'll probably get like a rim light. So push that light to the back. And get that light there. Number 2. Maybe get one from the side. You also have to kind of remember where the light source is coming from. So we know that the shadows are down here, so we want a light source coming from the left-hand side. Now you don't have to just use the blend. You can also come in here and use something like jelly bean, which is a different type of, gives a different type of lighting effect or information on the skin. It could be useful. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But you don't really need too many, I don't think. And number 5. So I think I'm going to leave it there. For the lights, just turn that back to a blend. Turn it to 1. Bring this light back to the front. Bring the intensity down. And there we are. Just turn the colors back on. Oh, that looks awful. Let's just put that skin shader back on. And yeah, I think that's it, guys. That's pretty much how I render using that technique inside of ZBrush. Now I'm going to leave it there for tonight because it's quite a long live stream, 2 hours. I hope everyone's had a great week. I'm going to, like I said, there's a massive Halloween sale going on at the moment. If you haven't seen on the bottom scroller there, you got the Halloween sale for 50% off everything on my online stores. Now that does exclude on Artstation the bundle packs, but on Gumroad it doesn't. So if you want the bundle packs, go to Gumroad. I think there's a few on there that I have, but on Artstation for some reason they don't allow for money off on bundle packs. So make sure you buy the other ones instead. Yeah, let me just. Don't know what I'm doing right now. I think I'm going crazy. Here we are. Right. Turn off the comments. Right. That was something. That was a long stream. What I'm going to do is going to leave the stream up for the rest of the week, and I'll be taken into the membership only on Monday. So if you haven't seen it yet, grab a watch of it. If you can, like, share, and subscribe. Also, comment on the video. I don't know what's going on with YouTube's algorithm at the moment, but I don't think I'm getting enough traffic through to my site, and I think it's got something to do with the likes and shares and comments or something. I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, I hope this has been kind of fun to watch. I hope you guys have had an interesting experience of this live stream. I just want to say thank you to my members. Gotta go through this now. You know what? I'm just going to put the members up. It's too late. I'm just going to put the members up. I'm just going to say thank you to all my members on YouTube. We're growing very fast, and we're growing quite a lot of you guys now, and I really want to get more of you on board. The more of you that get on board, the better. I just want to say thank you to all my members at the moment on YouTube, as well as my Patreon members. Thank you all for being there for as long as you have been, and I hope that you are enjoying the Patreon exclusives. Again, 50% off sale on Artstation and Gumroad, Flip Normals, and ZBrush for my Halloween special. This is my Halloween special. I do this every October. I put everything at 50% off. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this live stream, and you all have a great weekend. I'll see you all on Monday for the anatomy sculpting, where we're going to be looking at the legs, the lower half of the leg. So have a great weekend, and I'll see you all on Monday. Take care, guys. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in more exclusive content and want to support my work further, then please check out my Patreon page at MLW_creative for more. Also, view past live streams you might have missed in Tier 3 tutorial support, where I will be archiving future streams moving forward. If you are interested in other full-length tutorials, brushes, and models, then check out my online stores for more useful content. I would also like to thank all my subscribers and patrons for supporting me for this long. Again, thanks for watching and stay safe.